incident. It's not going to be something that ends up ruining your business because we've seen situations where startups have one or two major security incidents and then they just pack up and then that is the end for them. And a lot of the times it happens like that because there was no proper preparation for things like that. Everyone just believes that, once the product is out there, you've done the best you can. Things should be safe, things should be secure. But we tend to forget that the same way you look at a product, or the same way you look as a user on a product, it's not the same way a lot of these attackers will look at those products. And most times, most startups end up being a prime target for a lot of these attackers due to the fact that a lot of them, a lot of startups can most times cannot properly afford full-on security or a full-on security department. It's something that a lot of the times they have to be working with or doing going alongside as they build, forgetting that yes, you might not be able to fully afford full-on security, but there are checks you can put in place to ensure that you're not getting overly exposed, you're not being too exposed on things. So, our guest for today is actually supposed to talk about how products get hacked, but for some reason he's not going to be able to make it. I've actually tried reaching out to him, but seems like he has an emergency of some sort, at least from what I heard from him. So I'm mostly going to be running through the session myself. At least he has shared with me a quick deck, and I'm going to run through it. And we can talk about how products get hacked, how attackers look into products, and then we can also talk about uh, how our product Sentry, how it helps in protecting you and how some of the best things you can do for both yourself as a business owner or as a team lead or somebody working in an organization, because we tend to actually forget that most times all it takes is just one security incident for you to lose your job. A lot of the time, um, somebody has to take the blame a lot of the time. So when I've seen it happen so many times where one person, perhaps you, especially if you work remotely, and then you find yourself, you have perhaps your social accounts gets hacked or things that you're doing, uh, any of this, and attackers are able to use you as a means to get into a business or get into a community, things like that. You will find yourself actually losing out on that because yeah, so I think I have someone else joining in. Yeah. So you will find yourself basically losing out on that because most of the time you're either going to lose your job or it's going to affect your reputation or it's going to be one thing or the other. And that is just on one side of it. Perhaps you're somebody working for the business. We're not even looking at what that could cost the business itself if perhaps their product gets hacked because of one person or one thing that happens. So I'm going to share my screen now and then we can just quickly look through this quick slide deck in here. And so, all right, awesome. So for today's session, considering the fact that a guest speaker will not be able to make it today, our whole plan was to be able to make this as practical as possible, where he'll be able to show you how some of these attacks work, perhaps from his own environment, and he will show you, he will be able to map out systems for you, where you could see one or two loopholes in products, but unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it today, but we're still going to be able to run through this session. We have a lot to unpack one way or the other. So, for once more, thank you all very much for taking out your time wherever you are to be able to make it to this session today. So, going into this, we can look at from the slide here, we can see my screen. A topic for today is basically how your products get hacked, and we're going to be looking at some how minor flaws can become catastrophic breaches, especially in modern startups today. And we are going to talk about a particular case study as well, where this happens too. So let me move on to the next one. So if we look at it, here we can see the attacker's mindset. That is one thing that one should always consider most times. As I said earlier, most people assume that a lot of people using a product are going to use it normally, but they don't actually know that the same way someone looks at a product is not the same way an attacker looks at that product too. Attackers do not view your product through feature requests or user persona. They map attack paths, trust boundaries, and asset value as well. Especially if your product is one that they have marked as something valuable. So these are some of the ways that attackers map startup attack surfaces. Number one, we have both API and auth controls. We have situations where unprotected administrative endpoints. We have broken object level authorizations and permissive OAuth scopes. These are things that most attackers would usually be looking out for. Sorry, I think I have. Okay, yeah. So these are some things that once an attacker is looking through your products, these are things that they're looking out for. They're looking out for unprotected API endpoints. Especially if you're a developer, you'll be able to relate to this. Unprotected API endpoints, they want to probe those endpoints and see how much permissions they can get with that particular endpoint. Or perhaps if you look at different parts of your code, different parts of your product, they're looking at where what just one little piece of unprotected um part is one thing that they are usually looking out for. Another way that they also map out products or attack surfaces are through development pipelines and secrets as well. So actually, if you hard code your API keys into your product, or perhaps you expose your environment variables in your GitHub repositories, once more, if you're a developer on here, you would actually be able to relate to what I'm talking about. But if you have situations where you find yourself pushing your environment variables to your GitHub repository, or you're not vetting your CI/CD pipeline, you're not vetting your permissions, or you have situations where you're downloading vulnerable dependencies into your code. A lot of these dependencies are what we actually call supply chain attacks, and these are ways that attackers are actually able to get into your products because all it takes is one vulnerable dependency. And I don't know if most of you have heard of this shy Hulud worm that has been going around recently, that came back again recently. So it's called a supply chain attack. And once you have a vulnerable dependency, using that, they could use it to exfiltrate secrets. So a lot of the time, secrets are like your API keys, your wallets, your wallet keys, basically anything in your environment variables that can be used to gain access to your products or get access to your wallets or anything at all. And then the third one is human and identity operations. This is where social engineering attacks really come in. So social engineering of perhaps core contributors, core team members, where you get targeted by phishing campaigns either on Slack or Telegram, or compromised developer workstations, things like that. If you were in the last session, I talked about how most attackers recently have been able to actually embed click fix attacks into legitimate Google spreadsheets. And what they do these days is they will go around on Telegram, they will meet you, especially if you're an early stage founder or you're somebody that is looking to get into accelerators. they would go around on some of these platforms like Telegram, Discord, and impersonate people that they could impersonate investors most times. They tell you, okay, we think what you're building is good, would like to invest into your product, join us on this call. Sometimes they could embed it on a call. I've seen that before where they have like a click fix embedded in a Google call. So you once you get into the call, you could see something like there's an issue on this call, click this to actually fix that issue. But the recent one that I came across was the one that was embedded in a Google spreadsheet itself, where they told people if you want to get into this accelerator program, just fill in your details into the spreadsheet and your business details, and that is one way. So, this slide, we talk about why attackers basically target startups. Number one, first of all, a lot of startups have rapid deployment cycles. A lot of the time, most startups don't even use staging environments. Like for most startups, speed is usually like the most paramount thing. Speed is what usually matters to a lot of startups, and due to that, they tend to cut corners when it comes to things like security, when it comes to things like using unvetted third-party tools and things like that. And the second one is the stepping stone advantage, due to the fact that a lot of startups, ideally, most times they're either serving enterprise customers or they work as vendors. So once one startup that is likely as a customer to a lot of big enterprises, that's as working as a vendor to a lot of big enterprises or have big enterprises as their clients. All it takes is for an attacker to get into that startup and then use that as a medium to get into that enterprise organization as well. So these are some of the key reasons why attackers would usually target startups from time to time. So this section will talk about vulnerability chaining. I didn't want to. I know we should be done by 8 o'clock sharp. It's supposed to be an hour max, but we're going to try to keep it um, as interesting as possible. So one thing that we've come to basically understand is that 90% of major breaches usually use chained flaws in the sense where all it takes is one small weakness. And then these days, AI even makes it a lot faster in the sense that the time it takes for an attacker to find a weakness and exploit that weakness has significantly reduced. If you look at the recent CrowdStrike reports, I think they put out a report that was 2026. I think a lot of these attacks have gone up over 90% compared to what we had last year. A lot of AI enabled attacks, and in the sense where all it takes is just one small vulnerability, and then they can change it. I know a lot of you have been seeing most of what has been going around in the AI space, where Anthropic talks about, okay, their AI escaped the sandbox and hacked this platform. I think OpenAI had something like that as well, and there's another company again that had something like that too. All right, so here's a quick case study. As I talked about, we'll be having a case study on this. So, um, Drift protocol is what we will talk about in this case study. Now, Drift protocol, I don't if you know about Drift protocol. Drift protocol is they're a platform on Solana that deals with a lot of like decentralized exchange and um, a lot of like cryptocurrency trading and things like that. So back in April 2026, this year, uh, this protocol lost about $285 million to an exploit, which involved like zero smart contract code flaw. There was no flaw, there was no issue in their code or their smart contract. Basically, how it worked was social engineering. What these attackers did was that they social engineered this team for 6 months. Like, you know what it means to plan an attack for 6 months. That was how these attackers worked with it. They reached out to the team. They used they were basically working hand in hand with the team. They reached out to the team as business partners, saying they would like to invest into their business. They actually did invest into the business as well. I think they invested about $1 million into their business too. And over time they would meet at events, they would have calls together. For 6 months, these attackers actually built trust with the Drift Protocol team. And just like that, they would share code repos, they would share code repos, they would share different things with each other until the attackers were able to slip in a malicious code into one of those repositories. And that was how they were able to conduct an admin takeover and drain $285 million from Drift Protocol. So it can be really, really crazy out here in the Wild West. So here are some critical SaaS vulnerability chains. We have SSRF to cloud exfiltration. So we have server side request forgery down to query cloud metadata services. These are some chains by which attackers could steal from you and then use that to attack you. We have from an SSRF all the way down to where they dump production S3 buckets. So again, if you're a developer, you'd be able to actually relate to this, but I do not want to spend too much time on this because we will have to start looking through the going through the full-on attack chain by itself. Another thing as well here is they could steal things like your session tokens, consent tokens, and they could use that to bypass MFAs. They could use that to bypass multi-factor authentications. And also, we could have situations where there's silence persistence is, I don't if you know about what persistence is a situation where an attacker gets into the system, but they're not doing anything at the moment. They are just watching that system and they are in that system and they are able to set up like different kind of backdoors to always come back into the system in a situation where perhaps maybe you find out an attacker is in there and then you're able to close one method of them getting in. They are able to create other backdoors and still come back into that system, and they do it in such a way that you cannot exactly notice it. So that's what we usually call persistence most times. So here's an end-to-end attack walkthrough on this slide. First of all, most attackers would start with reconnaissance. They could scrape GitHub repositories. They could go on look for subdomains, especially if they notice that your domain hasn't been used in quite a while. A lot of the times they will go and look for all of these different domains that haven't been maintained in a while, and then they would use that as a means to get in. They would also look for employee LinkedIn profiles and then look for exposed APIs as well. So, and then these days with AI makes this particular process of reconnaissance very, very easy these days because you can do it at scale. You can deploy agents at scale and then they will go out and create a proper profile of who they want to attack. The second one is an initial footload where they deliver like a weaponized repo or an IDE. Most times, this is usually done through social engineering, where they find a way to get you to make an action. Sorry. So they find a way to get you to take an action that gives them access into your system. A lot of the time, it could be through a code base, it could be through a file, it could be through like a website. Depending on how structured most of these attackers are, and depending on where they find the vulnerability as well. I think it's one of the key reasons why a lot of the times people always tell you to try and update your Chrome browsers, update your devices, update as much as possible because All it takes for them most times is to chain 1 0, they chain another chain to a vulnerability, and then they are able to chain it up to the point where they can get into your system. So here is where the escalation happens. So they are able to, for this escalation, this is where attackers, they are able to get, say, they get a key, and then they are able to use that key to give themselves more permissions. They could use it to give themselves like an administrator permission, or they are able to use it to give themselves or give their own systems or their own bots more permissions than what they are actually able to do. So a lot of the time, this is where escalation comes in, and then the final one is the objective impact, where they go for the attack. Either they want to, either if it's a ransomware where they clean out your database and then they ask you to pay some ransoms for you to get your data back, or if it's something where they drain your treasury, or depending on what they want to achieve from actually attacking you. So this is like the 4-step walkthrough on how they actually achieve that. So that is mostly those are most of the key things that we're going to talk about on this session. Um, one of the so I did say that I was going to talk about Sentry. So Sentry is, yeah. I don't know if you can still see my screen. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So now, going through, listening through most of all of this and how attackers get into you, especially due to the fact that social engineering is one of the key ways that attackers tend to be able to get into a lot of systems, they're able to get into places. Uh, till today, till today, social engineering and phishing is still one of the highest methods that attackers are able to do what they are doing. I mean, if we look at the Drift protocol case study, that was a classic case of social engineering attack, one that was perfectly planned for about 6 months. So, and going into that, looking at that, we noticed that this, even if if you start to try to perhaps protect transactions, or you put in keys here and there, a lot of the time you're only just trying to face the symptom itself. You're not going after the main problem itself. And one of that main problems still comes down to social engineering attacks. And this is where Sentry comes in as a product. So Sentry is an AI threat hunting and investigation agent. So what it basically does is that if you perhaps if you have the extension or you use the web app itself, it can help you scan links, it can help you scan files, it can help you scan wallets and code bases as well, and then it would investigate them and then let you know if this is something that would be malicious to you or not. During our last session, I was able to at least show people how Sentry was able to actually detect the click fix attack that was embedded in that Google spreadsheet. So it's a system that uses different AI, uses AI and uses AI vision, AI model, and a full-on AI system, and it would interact with that product or interact with any of that artifacts the same way, say, a security analyst would interact with a product like that. So let me see if I can get a quick example so that you can see what this looks like. Um, okay, so I think I still have that link here. So naturally, what one of the things that Sentry does and where it really comes in handy is that once you point or once you give something to Sentry, it's for it to work with. I think like what I will first of all do is I'll send this so that you can see what it actually does works like, or how it actually works like. So the moment I click on send, you should see Sentry basically. get into analyze this. Yeah, okay, so deep browser. So yeah. So now what Sentry will first of all do, it would perhaps if it's a website, it would take that link and then it would research first of all on that website. It would check the domain reputation of that website. It would check different threat intelligence databases and different tools as well, like Virus Total, like Google Web Risk. It would route it through all of them, and then while it does that, it would also go onto that page, it will open it in its own sandbox, and then interact with that. Perhaps if it's a website or if it's a product, if it's a website thereabouts, it could open it up in its own sandbox browser, and then it would go onto that website and interact with it. And while it's interacting with it, it's recording everything that is going on from the network calls down to the IP addresses, down to basically everything that is going on that site. And after it's done doing that, it will then let you know, all right, I've gone through this site or I've gone through this, I've scanned through this. This was what I detected. This is what would happen to you if you interacted with this product or if you interacted with this website or anything of that sort. So this is more or less like the web app itself, showing how Sentry basically does a deep scan. Usually, you can also. I'm sorry, I want to see if I can do like a full-on screen share. Because with a full-on screen share, you'll be able to see how it's. Yeah. Okay. So I might have some issues here a bit, but yeah. May I open up this up? Okay, so now with the Sentry extension itself, all you just need to do is to right click on any page whenever you're on any website or anything like that. Once you right click, you would see it in here in your drop down, the different kind of scans. Perhaps if it says, if you, yeah, okay, I think some of them, yeah, okay, all right. So if you're what you basically do is with you in your drop down, you'll be able to see the different kind of scans that Centric can run. You have the deep scan. Centric, you can also open up this page in a sandbox browser as well and interact with it if you want. We have the repository scan. So this is what works for code bases. A lot of the times, if you want to interact with a code base thereabouts, Centric will scan that code base for you, or if it's a DApp. So a DApp is a decentralized app that uses wallets, crypto wallets thereabouts. So if it's a DApp, Centric will create its own wallet and then interact with that for you to let you know if it's something that wants to drain your wallets for you. So right now we've been working on setting up auto scans for pages. So anytime you go onto any page, Sentry just automatically scans it for you and lets you know just how safe or how malicious it might be. If we look at this, I think this is still on. So if we look at this is one of the different ways that Sentry was actually able to detect one of the previous attack, the one that was done and embedded into the Google spreadsheet actually. So yeah, that is mostly it. That is mostly everything that we have on Sentry. As I said, thank you. I don't know if you guys have any questions, if you have any feedback so far.
That
Yeah,
oh shit, man.
yeah.
Yo, what's up?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, Mr. Dio. I'm good. How you doing? I hope you're good. Hope you've had a great day. Yeah. So if you happen to have any questions, just feel free to let me know. Feel free to reach out, and we can talk some more about what we're doing, how it's relevant to you, how you could use it, and basically everything that we have.
Okay, so excuse me, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, actually, I'm in the gym right now. So, please, can we have access to this, like share this, PowerPoint?
Yes, yes, sure, sure. Let me
Okay,
let me share this. Let me drop it in the chat.
oh, okay, so we can download it, right?
Yes, yes. So I've dropped it in the chat, so you
Awesome.
should be able to get access to it. Let me check the permissions as well.
Just asking for access.
Yeah, I want to turn that on. Yeah. All right. So I think everybody should be able to access the slide now.
Awesome.
Okay. So for this whole session has actually been recorded. So in case if you need to, we actually record most of all of our sessions. This is actually the second session in this series. We host this every 2 weeks on Wednesdays by 7 p.m. at least for the duration of this entire session and how it's going to be. So if you come onto our website on century.iu/workshop, you'll be able to see every of the sessions that it's been recorded and shared on here. This was the one from
Awesome.
last week. Yeah, from last week where we had Gabriel Udusonya. So he is the founder of Offfield Security, and he was able to join us last week. So today's session is going to also be recorded and placed here in the workshops page as well for everyone to be able to join in and also be able to watch, if
Hey,
you're
my
looking to
bro.
learn and
Okay
all.
then.
All right, so
Please.
thank you very much for taking out your time to join today's session. It's been a really really great one. I really appreciate one of you that took out your time to come on here to go through to it's really been an amazing one. Really appreciate it, and please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me through my email. So I'll drop my email on here so that we can connect some more. You can also reach out to me on Telegram as well. So if you have any bit of any questions, any feedback, anything whatsoever, just feel free to let me know, and we can take it from there. So thank you all very much for joining in. Do have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week as well.